At Chartreux Academy, where the children of noble families from neighboring nations came to study, quiet whispers filled the corridors. "I haven't seen the prince today," one student murmured, glancing around. "And the Chalia girl is missing too." In one of the academy's private rooms, Rose Chalia lay in bed, her body tense and trembling slightly. Prince Theodore leaned in, his gaze meeting hers with unusual intensity. A strange heat lingered in her limbs, making her feel lightheaded and flushed. "Why does my body feel like this? My throat, it's dry." She curled her fingers into the sheets, trying to regain control. There was no clear reason for the sudden discomfort, but it left her feeling impatient and restless. "I can't wait for him to act first. I need something to ground me," she thought, unaware that Theodore was wrestling with a similar sense of urgency. Through blurred vision, she recognized the golden shimmer of his hair as he stepped closer. As if drawn by instinct, she reached out, her voice barely audible. "Miss Rose, could it be that you're the one?" he asked quietly, tilting her chin up as their eyes met. Rose struggled to think clearly. Deep down, she knew something about this wasn't right. In the original story, she and the prince were never meant to be. But reality no longer followed the script. Chartreux Academy was meant to be a place of calm, a neutral ground for the elite youth. Yet all Rose could feel now was the confusion stirring inside her. Whispers surrounded her even in daylight. Other students glanced her way with unease. "She looked right at me," someone whispered. "I swear it felt like she was glaring." "Don't talk so loud," another replied. "She might hear you." Rose Chalia's presence had always drawn attention. As the heiress of House Chalia, she was known for her sharp wit and cool demeanor, traits many mistook for pride. In contrast, Prince Theodore van Nennel, heir to the kingdom of Corot, was seen as the ideal prince. His dark hair gleamed in the sunlight, and he greeted others with an easy smile. "Prince, spar with me today," one student called, bouncing with excitement. "Sure," Theodore replied with a relaxed chuckle. "But I won't go easy on you." His friendliness and poise made him popular with everyone. Many students admired him from afar. It was common knowledge that he was engaged to Rose Chalia, a pairing that stirred plenty of gossip. Theodore was admired like a figure from a storybook. By comparison, Rose felt like an outlier, even among the nobility. One afternoon, Rose stood quietly in the garden, the breeze lifting strands of her hair. Theodore approached. "Prince Theo, your birthday is this weekend," she said, trying to sound composed. He nodded. "That's right." She hesitated. "Is there anything you'd like as a gift?" Theodore glanced her way, then looked ahead. "If I need anything, I'll have my butler see to it," he said evenly. "There's no need for you to go out of your way. Let's just stay civil. I'll see you at the party." He turned and walked off, leaving Rose behind. Her breath caught. He had never spoken so coldly to her before. "So this is how it is. He doesn't want to be seen with me. He wants to keep his distance." It made sense. She wasn't the heroine. She was the villainess. In her past life, she had been an ordinary girl. An accident had taken her life, and when she opened her eyes again, she found herself in the world of Prince of Prince, a dating sim she had once loved. But she hadn't been reborn as the heroine. She was Rose Chalia, the noble villainess engaged to the prince. In the game, Rose's pride eventually drove Theodore away. On his birthday, he would meet the heroine, fall in love, and Rose would be cast aside, banished to a lonely countryside estate. That was her fate. Or so she thought. Her gaze drifted as she recalled watching Theodore during training. Even when wiping sweat from his brow, he looked effortlessly composed. How could I have believed I was just a side character? She wondered. But that strange heat, it changed everything. Why is this happening to me? This isn't how the story was supposed to go. Back in the room, Prince Theodore's hand rested on her cheek as their breathing slowed. A silence hung in the air. He hesitated, lifting a hand to his temple. "What is this feeling? Could it be?" His brows furrowed. He didn't have the words for it yet. But neither did she. A few hours earlier, the grand ballroom of Chartreux Academy was alive with celebration. Nobles filled the space for Prince Theodore's birthday, their formal attire shimmering under the chandelier's soft light. The marble floors gleamed, and the sound of conversation and laughter echoed gently through the room. Rose stood near the edge of the hall, her posture composed but her thoughts elsewhere. From nearby, she caught fragments of hushed voices. "It's Miss Rose," one girl murmured. "Yeah, that proud noble girl," the other added. Rose's hands tightened slightly at her sides. She kept her expression neutral. I can hear you, you know, she thought with a strained smile. She turned her attention toward the center of the room, where a small group had gathered. At the edge of the crowd stood Iris, the girl Rose recognized immediately. Her face was pink with nerves as she watched Prince Theodore from a distance. So that's her, the heroine. Rose's gaze lingered on the prince for a moment. He really does look good in that uniform. But she quickly dismissed the thought. Focus. This is the day they are supposed to meet, the beginning of their story. In the original game, Prince of Prince, this was the moment when the heroine would catch the prince's attention, and their relationship would begin. Rose was never meant to be part of that equation. Still, she approached Iris casually and gave her a light nudge. You've taken a liking to the prince, haven't you? Iris jumped slightly, clearly startled. Rose, she stammered. Flustered, she waved her hands. No. I'm just happy to be here. Rose smiled a little at her sincerity. She's sweet. No wonder she's the heroine. You'll be fine, Rose said, her tone kind but light-hearted. Go on, talk to him. A little confidence goes a long way. Iris's expression brightened. You're much nicer than I thought you'd be. Than you thought? Rose echoed with a quiet laugh. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean it like that. As Iris walked away, gathering her courage to approach the prince, Rose stayed where she was, watching from a distance. She saw them speak. The orchestra began to play, and they began to dance together, an image so familiar from the game that it stirred something uncomfortable in her. They really do suit each other, Rose thought. The feeling in her chest was difficult to define. Soft, but unmistakably heavy. This is how it's supposed to go, she reminded herself. I'm just the villainess. I don't belong in the spotlight. She turned to leave quietly. But then, unexpectedly, Prince Theodore approached her. He extended a hand with practiced grace. You've been unusually civil tonight, he said, his expression unreadable. I was dancing with someone else, but as my fiancé, it's expected we share a dance. Rose blinked. Why yeah, of course. Wait, what? She thought, startled. This isn't how the story's supposed to go. He should still be with Iris. Did nothing happen between them? As he leaned in slightly, his voice dropped to a quieter tone. You may not want to dance with me, but people are watching. Her eyes widened. No, that's not it, she replied quickly, placing her hand in his. They moved together as the music continued, and for a brief moment, Rose looked up to find his eyes already on hers. There was a strange heat in her cheeks, unexpected and mutual. Neither of them said anything, but the look they exchanged was enough to make them both pause, uncertain of what had just shifted. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over Rose as she stood beneath the glittering chandelier. Her vision blurred for a moment, and her heart began to race uncontrollably. What's this? She murmured, her hand instinctively pressing against her chest. Prince Theodore had gone still. His posture stiffened, and his eyes clouded with confusion. He looked as if something had struck him, invisible, but overwhelming. Prince Theodore. Rose called out, concern overriding her surprise. Without a word, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her with him. Come with me, he said sharply, his tone brooking no argument. Rose stumbled to keep up, her mind spinning. He didn't explain, didn't glance back. She barely noticed the startled looks from the nobles as they left the ballroom. All she could focus on was the unnatural heat rising in her chest and the unfamiliar way her body seemed to react to his touch. When they reached his room, he finally let go. She found herself sitting on the edge of his bed, dazed. Their eyes met, both flushed and unsure. This can't be happening, Rose thought, heart thundering. Is this heat? She'd read about it, a rare mechanic hidden deep within the one for Prince Theo, the autumn game she'd been thrown into. Heat was a bond trigger event, meant to signify that two characters were ideal partners. Soulmates. In the original storyline, the prince only ever experienced this with Iris, the main heroine. Not with me, Rose thought, cold dread spreading through her. I'm just the villainess. Prince Theodore stood a short distance away, breathing unsteady, his gaze locked on her like he was seeing something he didn't expect, or want. Prince Theodore is... Rose's thoughts spiraled. His reacting too. Then this isn't one-sided. He stepped closer. Without thinking, he reached out and brushed his fingers along her hand. Rose flinched, not in fear, but at the sudden warmth that bloomed under his touch. Her pulse skipped. His fingers laced gently but firmly with hers. This feels strange, she thought, her breath catching. But also comforting. I don't want to let go. The air between them felt heavy. He leaned forward slightly, his face close enough that she could see the fine tremble in his eyelashes. Then, abruptly, he stopped. His jaw tightened. Without a word, he bit down on his finger, sharp enough to draw blood. Wait, are you all right? Rose asked, startled by the sudden act. Don't touch me, he said, too quickly. She froze, unsure. The prince shut his eyes for a moment, exhaling like he was trying to force something out of his system. I'm sorry, he said quietly, not meeting her eyes. I'll have to ask you to leave for today. He turned, left the room, and didn't look back. Rose sat still, his absence ringing louder than any music from the ballroom. She bit her lip, blinking back tears. So that's how much he wants to avoid me. But even as the ache settled in her chest, a colder truth loomed beneath it. Maybe this was for the best. In the game, if the prince strayed from the heroine, if he ended up with the villainess, the ending was never happy. For either of them. In the world of girls dating sims, it wasn't uncommon for tragedy to follow if the villainess and the prince ended up together. Fearful of the prince's growing power, jealous nobles would plot to have him killed. Naturally, the villainess standing by his side would share his fate. It was just another grim ending among the many bad routes players learned to avoid. But for Rose, this wasn't some distant possibility or a scripted ending. It was her reality. And the situation unfolding around her felt anything but normal. The next day came quickly. As Rose sat on her bed, she looked tired. Rose hadn't slept a wink. She sighed as she got dressed. To think I would go into heat myself. She thought, mortified. It felt like I wasn't even myself last night. What if he hadn't stopped? Aerg. No, she thought, holding her flushed face. The shrill sound of knocking startled her from her frantic thoughts, but before she could answer, the door creaked open, and a familiar figure stepped inside. You're in high spirits bright and early, Miss Rose, came Oliver's light-hearted voice. Have you finished preparing for school? He asked, holding a tray as he poured tea. Rose quickly put on her jacket. Hold on. You could at least knock. I did. Several times, Oliver replied dryly, crossing the room without hesitation. His sharp eyes scanned her rumpled appearance. More importantly, your collar is twisted, and your scarf is off by exactly 3 degrees. He had been by her side since childhood, far more handsome than any ordinary butler ought to be, but to Rose, Oliver was like a teasing, ever-watchful older brother, one who refused to let her off the hook for anything. He paused, studying the dark circles under her eyes. Did you not get enough sleep? He asked, voice lowering with concern. At the party, I heard you joined hands with the prince, and then vanished. Could it be you're having a little too much fun before getting married? No, that's not. Rose spluttered, face flushing crimson. Oliver's playful expression shifted into something darker. Did the prince do anything to you? Rose froze, heart pounding. What? No, of course not. If he hurt you, miss? Oliver's voice turned steely, dangerous even. Even if he is a prince. I swear, you're jumping to the worst conclusions. Rose cried, frantically waving her hands. Oliver merely chuckled and glanced at the clock on the mantel. Well then, it's already time. Let's go, he said with a smile, though his eyes remained serious. As she turned toward the door, he added softly, Miss, if anything happens, you can always talk to me. I am your personal butler, after all. Rose felt a warmth rise in her chest despite herself. Thanks, Oliver. Rose was indeed a villainess, but Oliver did care about her, she thought. In class, everyone spoke among themselves. Rose was alone in her seat as she observed Prince Theo speaking happily with his friend. Maybe yesterday really was just a dream, she thought hopefully. Or maybe, I'm the only one still bothered by it. Whispers greeted her from every direction. Looks like Miss Rose is in a bad mood again, one student muttered. They are gossiping about me again, she thought, looking tensed. Just as she was about to concentrate amidst the gossip, a familiar voice called out, Miss Rose. She turned stiffly, and froze in place. Standing there, just a few steps away, was Prince Theo himself, his arms folded. Prince Theo, she gasped. Her eyes immediately fell to his right hand, where a white bandage wrapped around his knuckles. Her heart twisted. His wound. So it wasn't just a dream after all. Gathering her courage, Rose stepped closer. "Your wound, does it hurt?" she asked in a small voice. Prince Theo flinched, quickly drawing his hand away from her, making her flinch. I'm sorry," she apologized. "No, it's fine," he said, his voice unusually gentle. Then, without giving her time to retreat, he added, "More importantly, there's something I want to give you. Come with me." Before she could even form a protest, Theo turned and led the way, leaving Rose scrambling to catch up. He brought her to a quiet courtyard behind the academy building, hidden away from the bustling students. Theo extended his hand, revealing a medicine bottle with pills. "Do you know what this is?" he asked, watching her reaction closely. Rose stared at it, wide-eyed. Her breath caught in her throat. "That's," she whispered, looking flushed. Rose was phased. Could it be birth control? She thought, looking red. Theo gave her a faint smile and answered calmly, "This is medicine that can suppress heat." Rose gasped. "And it is?" "Of course, it is." The realization made her heart race. "Where did you get something like that?" she asked, puzzled. Theo averted his gaze briefly, a shadow crossing his expression. "Yeah. I took them from the castle's medicinal storeroom. It's not like I could ask somebody for them." Rose frowned in understanding. "That's true. If anyone found out that we're the one for each other," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "we'd be forced to marry, and then get assassinated. That would lead to the bad ending," she thought. Theo nodded. "Therefore, Miss Rose, let's take them together." They each took the pill. Their both nerves calmed down. Rose looked down at the medicine thoughtfully. "I wonder if it worked." Theo replied, "It should take effect immediately. But the effect is pretty short, so you need to take it every day," he said, handing her the bottle. He looked her in the eyes, serious. "Also, there's no point unless we both take it. If one of us goes into heat, the other will be pulled in as well." Prince Theo quickly walked to her, holding her face, their gaze locked. Just then, she looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Prince Theo?" He stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "Stay just like that." Her heart skipped a beat, tension brimming in the air. "Is the suppressant not working?" she thought nervously as he leaned closer. Rose closed her eyes, her face flushed. Theo exhaled deeply. "No. It looks like the medicine definitely works," he said, smiling. Rose let out a laugh, trying to hide her flustered state. "Oh. Yeah. Of course it does." "Oh my God. I thought he was going to kiss me," she thought. "Trying to stay focused," Theo said. "And with this, we can manage to avert the trouble at hand." But then his tone turned somber. "The problem is what happens after this." Rose looked at him. "After this?" "We were supposed to marry as a formality, for the sake of both our houses," Theo explained. "But, if we truly become the one for each other, I will definitely pounce," he said as he stepped towards the window. Rose blushed. "Pounce?" Theo turned his gaze downward. "I would never want to hurt you by having sex without love." Understanding dawned on her. This was why Theo had turned her down the previous night. He had been protecting her. On that note, Theo hesitated. "I've been thinking of breaking our engagement." "Breaking our engagement?" Rose echoed, her mood lighting up. Theo noticed her reaction. "What's wrong?" "If you could, you'd also want to leave me, no?" he asked. "Yeah," she admitted. "I was just hoping we could end our engagement too," she said softly. "In order to avoid the bad ending, that's the best way. Even if I could marry Prince Theo, there'd be no point if we get assassinated," she thought. Prince Theo folded his arms. "The problem is whether both our houses will allow us to break it off. In order to persuade them, we need to create a situation where everyone believes we have no choice but to end it," he tells her. Rose nodded slowly. "True. How about I do something that would make me unsuitable to be your consort?" she asked with a smile. "That would probably work. But no. I don't want to damage your reputation," he admitted, looking tensed. "My reputation?" "This isn't the time for that," Theo said firmly. "Breaking off this engagement is for the sake of this world," she said harshly.
But then he softened. No.
It's for the sake of our happiness, she said quickly. So that future doesn't come to pass, she thought. Rose stared at him, her voice barely audible. I see. So that's how much you want to leave me, he asked, rubbing his forehead.
He?
She echoed, looking unsure.
She swallowed her emotions.
Understood. Let's do whatever you think is best, he added. Thanks, Prince Theo, she said calmly.
For the sake of our happiness.
To avoid getting the bad ending, she thought before turning to leave the room, her smile evident. Well then, let's get to it,
she said cheerfully.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.